All right. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to our second episode of Leadership Matters Live with two members of the Leadership Matters team. Glad to have you guys back with me again. Michelle Navarro, what's going on? How are you?
I'm great. How are you? How's everyone?
Everyone's doing good. Happy to be here today. And Bill, how you doing, bud?
I'm good, brother. Happy to be back.
Yeah, you got your devil's advocate hat on?
I'm ready to go. Michelle seems to be the most fairest, so I think I'll be okay.
All right. Well, we're trying this, and this is our new platform. This is where we're going to be on Facebook and YouTube Live. We're having conversations. Essentially, this is just a place where, as I put in the Facebook page, teachers, leaders, and coaches, really of all walks of life, can come together and hopefully just discuss some solutions that we need moving forward. And today we have a close friend of mine, a co-teacher, and someone who I think is really leading the charge in all this. My buddy David Frangiosa, teacher and co-author of the book Going Gradeless, which is going to be dropping soon. So he's going to be on with us very soon, and he has a lot to say. So I hope you guys have questions for him. And moving forward, like I said, this is just going to be a place where we're not going to focus so much on the perfect episode. We're just going to try to be here and talk to each other, and hopefully be here for other people to come on and talk and share their solutions. How's that sound to you, Michelle?
It sounds great. I'm really looking forward to speaking to David. Actually listened to one of his podcasts that he did with some other groups. So really excited to talk to him and ask him a few questions. And excited for this platform for people to come on and share their ideas, because that's basically the starting point, is sharing ideas. We're always here to try to learn from each other and collaborate.
Right. And so let's also point out that this is real life, right? We are parents, teachers, we have kids, so there may be kids in the background, and that's the virtual world that we live in right now.
Yeah.
So that's okay. We can do that. And it is what it is. I don't know. I mean, just, I'm excited to be doing this, and I think it's going to be a good place and a good platform for us going forward. We should point out, or I want to point out, that I'm hoping to bring some different walks of life in this as well, right? I have a background with the military, education now. Bill, your background in the military. Michelle, you're a teacher in a very different place than I am right now. So I started out in the Bronx, and now I'm in New Jersey, and you're still in the inner city teaching, correct?
Yes, I am. This is my 14th year teaching at a Title I school, and I've always taught in this school. This is my first and only school, and it's in the neighborhood I grew up in myself. So I'm looking forward to see what I can learn and bring back to my school that I can incorporate in my teaching, and just share out what I think is happening in my community, and how all the issues that we see in the world are affecting all of us in different ways.
Right. So our real purpose here, it's, it's great to hear ourselves talk, and we love having conversation with other people. I think this can be a platform where we can all have professional development, but also our main focus is getting solutions to the youth and the young adults out there, because that's really what our concern is. And as we're going forward, there's only so much we can do individually, but we can try to pass that information on. And Bill, give us a little bit of your background, if you don't mind, real quick.
I am a retired police officer with the city of Yonkers. I was in the military with my buddy Rob here. I love camaraderie. I love this country. And I love having discussions with you guys, because you guys offer alternative viewpoints to things that are going on in our country. And
we would say you offer the alternative viewpoint.
This is true. I probably am the protagonist. I understand. I'm okay with that. I'll take that. But like you guys said, at the end of the day, we've spoken about this many times before. The mission statement is the same. And it's not to influence people. It's just to get people to open up their minds, because it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. The polarization that's going on in this country is out of control on both sides. And I think this is a great forum to make people not necessarily change their opinions, but be willing to say to themselves, there are other ways to look at things. And that's what I'm hoping to accomplish with you guys.
And like our tagline says, a mind once opened evolves, right? So that's our point. Just open your mind and continue figuring out how to grow at all times moving forward. I know Dave and I actually spoke about it last week, that once you think you have all the answers, nah, you don't. You're wrong. There's always something else to learn. So I know he's very happy to be coming on here, I hope, with us. And I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say. I know a lot because I work with him every day. I know a lot of what he's going to talk about. So without further ado, I'll bring him on. Dave Frangiosa, teacher. What's up, Dave? How are you? Teacher, now author, two-time state championship winning baseball coach on the high school level, and avid barbecuer.
Thanks for having me.
What's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing all right. How you guys doing tonight?
Pretty good.
Doing very well. So we wanted to, at least let's start out with throwing it right out there. You got the book coming up, Going Gradeless. How has that process been for you? Has it been a long process?
So, this is probably about 8 years in the making. So even before I went gradeless, I had kind of shifted my classroom approach to be more, I guess, student-centered, less of me and more of like that guide on the side instead of the sage on the stage. And then when things were plateauing and I wasn't getting the results that I really wanted, the conversation kept coming back to the thing getting in the way was grades. And so after talking with our administrative team and just kind of running it up the ladder all the way to our superintendent, they gave me the green light to try and throw away grades. And I've been doing that for 6 years now. And along the way, I've been collecting data the whole time. I've been interviewing students, doing surveys, having conversations, taking anecdotal notes. So this isn't something that's my opinion. This is something that I've seen, and we've seen the change in our students over the course of 6 years. And, Rob, if I say anything out of line, you're in the class every day, you call me out. All right.
Yeah, no, I can back you up on all of it.
So what we're seeing 6 years into this, even in the most challenging year that we've ever taught in, our students are doing better than they were doing 6 years ago when we had all the resources at our fingertips and we were seeing them every day. Right. So, and I attribute a lot of that to this shift in mindset, just the way that we're approaching our students and just changing our view of our students.
So I wanted to point out that when you and I first started working together, it's like night and day between who you were and your teaching philosophy back then and how it's changed over the years. Because you say you don't want to be that sage on the stage, have that authoritarian point of view now, but I can say with full honesty and clarity that is who you were back then. 6 years ago.
I'll wear that one. That was me. It was I didn't have a formal teaching education. I was alternate route. So for me, it was kind of trial by fire when I went into education. And so I just kind of, I knew the content, but my classroom management skills weren't great. And so you just kind of find what works. And it was a lot of trying to put students in their place, which isn't the way to connect with students. It's not the way to get them to want to learn, to want to grow. And going through this process and understanding how students learn has really changed the way that I talk about students, the way that I think about students, and ultimately the way I interact with students. And that's really made a tremendous difference, especially since we teach our striving learners. So these are the students that typically have challenges with school. So when you're talking about honors or AP students, they'll learn in spite of you. It doesn't matter. They could probably take the textbook and then take the test at the end of the year. There's a lot of them who'll do great. Doesn't matter who's in front of them. But when you're talking about, our at-risk population, the students who are typically underserved, how you think about them and how you approach them really makes an impact on how they learn.
Right.
And so this process has definitely changed my mindset on that. And, Rob will tell you, I am a much happier person now than I was 6 years ago. So my job has become a lot more fun and a lot more fulfilling.
So I wanted to touch on a little bit of what you said about the at-risk students, those striving learners, right? Because those aren't students that we see only in our school. Those students are everywhere. And Michelle and I,
students.
Yeah,
year after year.
Right. Like we often talk about the fact that if you look at it collectively, most of the at-risk students are students that are in lower income communities and are students of color. And from talking to Dave a lot, I know like this new program that he'll outline a little bit for us of his standards-based grading really addresses a lot of the issues that we are facing with our at-risk students.
Yeah. So it's not about gender. It's not about race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, ableism. Everything, the way you approach students, all of these, although they're distinct things, the way you approach students can address them all. It's not a unique approach for each individual marginalized group. All right. So when you change your thinking just about limitations on people, and rather than saying, well, they can't do this, and say, well, we'll let them try and we'll give them the support they need. Just that mindset of them not being treated differently and being given the same opportunity that everybody else is given. So right now, I've taught 3 different levels of physics. And right now I teach our most challenged students, and they're doing the same physics that we give to our CP, honors, AP students. The only difference is they get a lot more support. We go at a much slower pace, but it's not, okay, well, this is the work that's good for you. No, it's physics. It doesn't change. I just know that we got to go a little bit slower. And, I give them more prompts. I give them more guidance. And for them, they understand when they're being patronized. And if you just say, all right, this is your work, check the boxes, get through, we'll give you your credit, you move on. Well, they're not going to learn anything other than they're not valued. So here we're saying, okay, try it. Yeah, it's going to be challenging. You're not going to know everything, but I'm only looking for you to get this much out of it. I want you to try. I want you to think about it this way, and incremental improvement over time. As long as your next assignment is better than your previous one, that's all we're looking for, right? Let's just keep taking forward steps and shifting to that strengths perspective, as opposed to that deficit mindset of these are all the things they can't do, to, okay, great, here's what you can do. Next time, try and add this. They all respond very, very well, and we're able to do way more than we could trying to, force them into compliance.
Why can't we do that keeping grades the old way?
Good question.
Okay. So it depends on the population that you're talking about. So if you're talking about high achieving students, grades aren't an issue. All right. And the reason for that is they're used to grades telling them that they're doing well. Right. So they're getting A's, they're getting B's, and maybe they're disappointed on an assignment.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But it's not the norm. Right. It's not every day I go to school, I'm told how terrible I am. But when you talk about our striving learners, every time they take a test or they give an assignment and they try their hardest, like they do their best to get a C. They work twice as hard to get half the grade. So, we talk when in that deficit mindset, we're saying they need to be supplemented because they're less than. Right. And so they see that clear as day in a grade. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So when they're constantly met with C's, D's, and F's, it's just like they'd rather say, okay, I'm not doing your work and I'll take the 0 because I didn't try, rather than try my best and squeak by and hopefully get credit because you pity me.
Right.
So oftentimes we're having the wrong conversation. We're talking about how can we differentiate between an A and a B? Well, my contention is how can we provide a realistic pathway to learning for all of our students? Right? And a grade doesn't do that. Now, you take away the grade and you provide descriptive feedback and you provide these learning progressions and pathways. The beauty of it is those high achieving students aren't harmed by that. They still do well in that environment. Mm-hmm. Right? There's no negative consequence to that. And that's not me saying that. You can look up studies by Ruth Butler that have been confirmed by ETS. And, so if you look at the resources on my website, you can look at those studies and they'll tell you that. And that's stuff that we've seen as well, just in the 6 years of collecting data. The positive results that we see in this, in the at-risk community doesn't come at the detriment of our high achieving students. So if we can do something that's going to provide a pathway for more students to do better and it doesn't harm anybody else, why not?
Right. And that's what it feels like. So often we're focused on those top level students. Right. And that's what our grading system has been. The students who do the best get the most, and they get the most opportunities. And essentially, this is where I know I'm going to fire Bill up a little bit on this, right? That's our country, right? The people who have the most opportunity continue to get more and more opportunity, right?
But when you talk about a school, though, and a meritocracy, fine, okay, but a school is not really a meritocracy when you're talking about grading, because it's not an even playing field. So people don't have the same supports at home. People don't have the same situations at home. They don't have the resources. So when you incorporate non-academic factors into a grade, that's ultimately going to say who gets those additional rewards, right? It's unfair, right? So we work in a district where our students can afford tutors, right? They have tutors for just about every class. They have parents at home that can help them with the homework. If they don't, choose to work, they don't have to work, a lot of them. We have some that do, but, I've worked in other districts. I've worked in Patterson and Hackensack where, I've had students that they said, look, I'm not doing your homework because I got to hop on the bus, go to the city, work at my parents' bodega till midnight. I don't get home until 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm not doing your homework. I said, that's valid. Like, what are they going to do? And so there's certain things. And if you're bringing those non-academic factors in and grading that homework when, maybe those students don't have the opportunity because of, other circumstances. Well, then is it really a meritocracy? Are we really rewarding who is the best? We're rewarding the people who demonstrate, demonstrate that they can communicate that information, not necessarily our best thinkers, our best students. And, so what we're trying to do is really just strip away all that other stuff and say, okay, here are the skills that we're looking for. You have a year to get there. How far can you get?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Michelle, I'll leave it to you. Do you have anything that you want to add to that?
Well, just a few comments. I like that you, just by switching the language a little bit, it affects you as a teacher so much, because a lot of times we talk about those students, those at risk, as strugglers. Those are my struggling students. Instead of saying struggling, if you switch that to my striving students, they're trying to learn and they are learning. They might learn a little slower, they might learn a little differently, they might need more support, but they're striving to learn as well. So that is a shift. But I do have a question about what kind of support you got from your district and from your school, because I think all over the country, I think a lot of teachers are struggling with, especially if you have striving students, where you're being told from your administration or your district that you have to assess. I feel like all we do is assess data. We want to see the data. And at the end of and they say, well, scaffold, provide scaffold, support the students. But then at the end of the day, your success is measured by how they score on a state standardized test. So I guess I would be considered a striving teacher, because I always have striving students and they're not going to do well on those standardized tests. So I wonder what kind of support you got from the school and how you think other teachers can approach their districts or their schools to kind of start making a shift.
Sure. Well, that's a loaded question. So I got a lot of support from our district. All right. This was something that when I started, our assistant principal, who's now our principal, it was something that he's very passionate about. And our supervisor is amazing. Our director of curriculum sent me all over the country, sent me out to Chicago, sent me up to Connecticut to look at schools who are doing stuff like this. Pretty much any professional development that I wanted around this project, he granted me. The superintendent granted me the professional freedom to make mistakes, because I'm not going to say this was perfect from the beginning. It wasn't. All right. So, they gave me that leeway with the caveat that as long as the best interest of students is in mind and things will change if they're not working, go ahead. So, they checked in, they made sure that things were going in the right direction, and, everything was run by them ahead of time. But I guess I got more support because it was working. Students were less stressed. They were doing better. In the first year that we ran this, we had a girl who in the first half of the year had a 44% in the class. She was always in the hallway, always leaving class. You know who I'm talking about, Rob.
Yep.
So we switched mid-year during that year. And the second half of the year, and I'll admit the model wasn't great, but just that shift to that strengths perspective, this girl rarely left class. When she did, she came back. She's wound up participating more. She didn't skip tests. She was a leader in her lab group. And in the second semester, wound up getting a 77 and passing the class. So going from a 44 to a 77, even as flawed as this was, they said, okay, you know what? There's something here. And, I was surveying students the whole time before we implemented this at the end of the year. And they were saying, you know what? It's better than I thought it would be. All right. And from there, it just kind of, I wound up gaining some goodwill with students because they're just like, okay, he definitely has our best interests in mind.
Yes.
The parents started seeing, okay, there's something to this. And each year we made improvements. So over the course of 6 years, we made fundamental changes that made this better each and every time.
So a couple points I wanted to make with that. First off, our administration, an example of leadership matters, right? It does, because we, and Dave in particular, could not have gone as far as he has with this without the support of the administration. They were key in this and continue to be. The parents, we work in a district that is fairly affluent, and the parents are very involved. So getting them on board with a new program was not an easy feat. And we had parent meetings, a couple that first year. And then we even planned more, just to communicate what the standards-based grading was, how we were going to be doing it, answer any questions that they had. And not all of them bought in at the start. They had to see the evidence.
But and those meetings were really meant to show the parents that, look, we care about your students and we have their best interests in mind. All right. So Rob, I don't know if you can, but there's some comments. If you click on them, you can bring them up on the screen.
Oh, awesome.
All right.
Okay.
And so we have some good comments over there. So
language matters. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. This one I thought was funny, right? Kathy's saying I did terrible on those tests, but had all A's, right? And that's a lot of our learners, right? Right. AJ Bianco,
who is an administrator. So,
right.
to get to that point of how do you get administrators on board, show them the how and the why, right? So why do we need to make this change, right? And how are you going to go about that? Now, typically, and to get at your question, how can we do this across the country, especially with the districts that have a lot of striving learners? They're up against challenges when you have the state coming in saying you have to do this.
Exactly.
They push compliance, right? Here are all the boxes that you need to check, and compliance and learning are counter to each other. Right. So, we're doing the wrong thing. And don't get me wrong. Like, I understand there needs to be oversight and there needs to be progress. Right. But the way we go about it with, like PIPSIS and all these different things to, upgrade school culture rather than getting at, well, how come we're seeing these issues? How come we're seeing the failures? How come we're seeing the discipline problems? Right. And then, starting in the classroom and expanding, it's a challenge because there are certain things that you have to meet. The state comes down on your admin comes down on teachers. They make the teachers compliant, who in turn, right, like you said, I'm a striving teacher because I teach striving learners. So now you're coming down on your students to be compliant, right? So all the way down the line, it's compliance, compliance, compliance. Nowhere in that conversation is anybody talking about learning. They talk about test scores, which are results. That's not learning, right? So we have to switch that conversation to, how do we bring students from not learning and not caring about learning to those incremental steps that will get them to learning. And it has to start younger than high school. Right. So it's a huge problem and a huge shift. And I think a lot of the reason why people have such a hard time with it is we were all taught in a traditional graded environment. It's what we're used to. We think it communicates information that it doesn't communicate. So people say, oh, I got an A, I did well. I got a B, I did okay. Now, if you're turning in work in September, a grade is the biggest lie there is. So if you turn in work in September and you get an A on it, you turn in that same exact quality of work in June, you're not getting anywhere near an A.
Right.
I'm going to pause you there for a sec, Dave, because I caught a look on Bill because you said a grade is the biggest lie there is. Bill, speak to that. What do you think?
I'm going to be honest. I'm going to shock you, Rob, but I'm not completely opposed to what Dave is saying. The logic, I've never heard of this logic in my life, other than the brief conversations we've had. And I'm not saying it's the worst thing on earth. I guess I'm looking at it from the perspective of I'm blessed to have a lot of nieces and nephews, and I mean, they've done so well. We're talking about, UC Berkeley, UConn, Tufts, and watching them grow up. There was that, and I said this to Rob before, and I think I said it to Michelle too. There was that healthy competition amongst each other. And, when one got an A, the other one studied harder, was in the lab longer to get another A. So when you say an A is a lie, as a layman, because I can talk to you guys all day about law enforcement, but this is your field. But as a layman, and obviously a lot of people are in my position, it doesn't trouble me, but it concerns me, I guess, if you will, because I don't want our kids to think that a grade doesn't matter. Because I know that my kids, I have a soon to be 14-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 6-year-old. I'll take my middle, Juliana. She's aces in school, and she studies really hard. And when I see her get a good grade, she's like the biggest shining star. And when she does bad, she doesn't like, it's not the end of the world, but she comes home, she's like, Dad, I got an 85. I can't play with you tonight. I want to study. I want to do better. And so while I respect where you guys are coming from, and I do think that there might, you guys may have tapped into something. As a parent, again, who's not part of your culture, the teaching culture, I have to say that, the grades do mean something, because I see it with my own kids, and again, I'm just giving it to you from another perspective.
Yeah, no, and that's fair. And so my response to that would be, first off, learning shouldn't be a competition, right? It's a process. And now for your high achieving students that are going for valedictorian, and it is a competition for them, and they can handle that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But when you make it a competition, the people who always lose, right? There's some people who can never compete in that world, right? And we're eliminating them from the process. And when we're building a culture, and when we're building a model around the few who can compete, right? Then, is that really fair? And is that what education should be? Public education is supposed to be for all students. The model that we have set up now doesn't work for all students. That's why we have IEPs, right? But my contention with an IEP is the students who have an IEP are acutely aware that I'm not good enough, so you had to make accommodations for me. Now, if we go a different direction and we reframe it where, okay, this is what we're doing, and where you are in your progression, it's fine. We'll coach you up to those next levels. Then it's more attainable for more students. Now, to get to the point about the 85. So when your daughter gets an 85 and she's upset about it, does she understand the 15%?
It's not that she's upset. I'll be honest.
Okay.
She's motivated to want to do better.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So to do better, does she know the 15% of things that she didn't get? Does she so what I'm saying is we reframe this to where it's not about that percentage, the 85. It's okay. In problem solving, you didn't do your label diagram, right? You didn't isolate the variable in the equation. So it's more descriptive feedback of, here are all the things that you did well. The next time, because those were missing, you can add those and do even better. And
rather
so,
than just saying you need to study harder.
Exactly. So it provides a guideline, right? So and it doesn't matter. So if you have a high achieving student, you can make them a higher achieving student, right? And
Okay.
so like we can push students to the edge of their boundaries and a little bit beyond, and like they're still learning more, right?
Okay,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
Wait, hold on.
Okay.
Bill, hold on to that thought, but seriously, hold on to the thought, because this is where Dave excels.
Okay.
He invites criticism. He invites people to critique what he's doing. He's done it every single year. He does it, in the 6 years, 6 or 7, I don't know, that we've been working together. Every year, the system, the process has changed, right? And he invites that from the students, the administration. So I know he's looking forward to the questions.
Okay, so I have 2 questions. The first is, you guys said you've been doing this for 6 years, right? So let's say, or what grade did you guys start?
We teach juniors in high school.
Yeah, 11th grade.
Okay, so the first group of 11th graders you taught are 6 years removed from 11th grade. So my first question is, how did they get into the higher education? How did they get into their next school if it wasn't based on scores? When all of the other kids trying to go into that same school probably were based on a scoring system.
That's fair. And I'm not opposed to grades as communication. Okay. I'm opposed to grades as currency. All right. Okay. So at the end of the year, we convert all of our evidence to grades, and we have a predetermined conversion chart. So this is the progression that we're expecting students to take. So there's still accountability. It's not, and I guess that's the biggest misconception, is that in a gradeless environment, everybody does well. That's not the truth at all. It's, we're eliminating the obstacles to give more students the opportunity to do well. They don't all do great.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay, I guess that leads into my second question. If you have a kid it doesn't matter what grade, so let's say 10th grade, and that kid, you do your testing system at the beginning of the year, and he's doing horrible. But you're like, okay, we're going to go slower. We're going to try to incorporate things to go at your pace. And even at the slower pace, he still, or she, at the end of the year, still just didn't get it. How do you score or judge that student?
Yeah. So the way we do things, as science teachers, every content area has skill standards embedded in the national and state standards. So for science teachers, we have the next generation science standards called the NGSS, and there's science and engineering practices. So those are all the skills, and those are what the grade is based on at the end of the year. Content is the vehicle for how we teach skills. It's important and it's embedded, but it's not the focus. It's not, you need to know this much content. It's, all right, how far did you get in your progression of skills? And we break that down into beginner, developing, proficient, advanced, and expert. So those are our levels. So everybody coming into the class, we expect them to be a beginner. This is the first time they're seeing that skill. And so we have words that we use to form our language. So for the beginner level, it's try. What does it look like to give an honest effort? So everybody at the bare minimum can try, right? So that becomes, if you're trying and beginning in every single one of our standards, well, then you're going to get credit for the class. All right. So you're trying everything. Now, credit for the class doesn't mean you're getting an A. It just means you pass the class, you can move on to the next one. So then that next level, developing, we're talking about, okay, so now you gave that honest effort. How can you start explaining your process? How can you start bringing the concepts that are unique to this particular content area, and just start talking about the vocabulary, start using it, start saying things that are relevant, right? Maybe not being right, but you're trying to get towards more sophisticated language, right? And so that's something that all students can do, right? If they're trying, it is a natural progression. And we see very few students who don't advance. The only students who don't advance are the students who don't try.
Okay,
All right?
what happens to those students who don't try?
They fail.
They fail. Okay,
They have
so
to.
there is some sort of grading
There's
standard.
accountability. Absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
I think one of the things that troubled me when I first spoke to Rob about this, because it's very, very interesting, is that if a teacher tries with someone and they don't get a score or they do really bad, that it's okay, because as long as they try, they're going to get a pass. And I don't think that's fair. And then we brought the minority aspect into it. And to me, the minority aspect for certain things is irrelevant, whereas it's very important for other aspects. And that's a whole different show that me and Michelle have gotten into, time and time again. And I'm sure we'll touch on it again. But that was one of my big concerns.
Yeah. Well, no. So we have minimum requirements for credit. So in order for me to make a professional judgment on where you are in your learning progression, you need to produce work. You have to do something. So it's not everybody gets a free pass. Everybody does well. It's providing, like I said, it's providing an opportunity for more people to have that pathway to learning. Right.
And, over the years, we've seen a lot of those students that the rest of the teachers and all teachers, really up to the point that they've gotten to us, have looked at them as, I don't know, for lack of a better word, troublemakers, to use that book title. Students that can't do it, students that are just unwilling, unmotivated. And we've had a lot of kids that once they realize, all I have to do is actually try this. Okay, I can try it. And now I just got to do a little bit more to move up just a little bit. They start feeling that those small seeds of success that they start grabbing onto and realize, okay, I can have a small little bit of success here and I can do a little more now. And just because I didn't have success in an area, I'm not beat down. I don't have a 0 that is going to haunt me for the whole year. Because a lot of these striving learners that we talk about, they'll have, if we're going back to the old grading system, they're fighting for that 70, they're fighting for that 75, and they're studying hard and they're working. And then something happens that they have a bad day and they end up getting a 40 on a test. And that 40 haunts them all year long.
Yeah. And the other thing is, and I was this way too, back when I started teaching, is I would know in October what grade. I was like, well, yeah, this kid's going to get an A in the class. This kid's probably going to get a D. Like, in September, October, right? And if that's the way your grading is presented, where in October what a student's going to get in June, that's not equitable, right? There's no pathway to success there, right? You're sorting. You're seeing, like, can the cream rise to the top, right? And so, that was one of the things when we're working with the students who never had that opportunity to succeed. And, I've been working with this population for about 15 years now. So, like, I've seen the struggles, and everything that I tried, it kept coming back to the grade. So it's there is something to it, right? That incremental improvement over time. And I understand if you're not in that environment where you're seeing students, I understand why you would question that, okay, yeah, grades are important. And I'm not saying that grades aren't important. I don't think they should be the focus, right? So the conversations that I've had with parents when we first shifted to this, how dare I do this in their junior year, their most important year? I'm going to be the reason they don't get into college. I said, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen. I can give your daughter an A right now and she's not going to learn anything. And then in college, when she needs these skills and she doesn't have them, would you prefer that? She's like, well, that's not what I'm saying. I said, well, that's exactly what you're saying. So, the conversations always went back to that. It's just they wanted that currency of the grade. If we can remove it as a currency and put it in its rightful place as solely communication at the culmination of the learning, I have no problem with it. And AJ, to answer your question, I do remember the grade I got in 8th grade history because I got a progress report for not working up to my ability. And I got in so much trouble for it. And I said to my mother, I'm getting an A, but you got a progress report that you're not working up to your ability. I was like, well, I mean, the course is kind of stupid. I know exactly what the teacher wants. I give him what he wants and I don't do any more. You know, and so Bill, to go to my point before where the grade is a lie, like we have students who play school really well and they figure out what each individual teacher wants and they can navigate without ever truly learning, right? They just give the teacher what they want. They find out, okay, these are the things that they give a lot of points for. These are the things that they take a lot of points off for. And I figured that out really early in my school career. And, you know, a lot of teachers do that. They have, you know, the things that they value, they communicate that to students and the students know it and they navigate, you know, and yeah, sorry.
I think everything what you're saying is very valid. I do have a problem with the wordage, maybe, I guess, with the grade is a lie, but I think that maybe it would go farther and maybe it would reach a lot of more people who are on the fence like I was. If maybe you said it was just another form of currency, are there other forms of currency? You know what I mean?
Well, so when I say a grade is a lie, so, and I know you're not in education, so this conversation probably doesn't resonate with you, but oftentimes we see in students will in September, October, oh, I'm doing great. I'm getting A's. And then like, you know, November, December comes around, they're getting B's. January, February, they're getting C's, right? And it's that constant downslide. Yeah. So when I say the grade's a lie, what I mean is they're submitting work in September and we're judging it based on the criteria of this is where you should be now, and it's given an A. And they look at that as I'm doing everything I need to do and I don't need to improve. And then as the work gets harder and they're still performing at that level, right? They're performing at the level they were in September, but the criteria advanced. Right. And it's not explicitly said that, okay, we're upping, you know, we're upping our expectations. The work just gets harder progressively. And they're staying at that same level because they had that mindset of I'm doing good.
Yes, that's a fair enough explanation. I appreciate that.
And on that note, you know, at our mid-year point, we have to transfer all of those skills and standards that we've gotten for the mid-year and give a grade for that mid-year report card that all those parents want so they can give that to the colleges, right? But then we also say, look, if you maintain the same level that you're at right now and you stay where you are, your grade's going to go down because you cannot stay at the same level. You have to continue to strive forward all the time to get better.
Yeah, and Michelle, I think I cut you off before. I apologize. You had a thought, so.
Oh no, I was thinking about how I like the idea of focusing more so on the skills, which is the critical thinking, the data analysis, the communication, versus so much on just the content. On just the content. Do they know this content at this point, this unit, this topic? More so the skills that can transfer from this class to another class that they'll need going into higher education. I guess, and I said the grades for my strivers, it almost reinforces that you can't succeed because if you keep getting the same grades even though you're striving, then you say, well, this just reinforces that I can't get this. I was just wondering, as you were speaking, like how could this be applied, this approach, this skills approach, be applied to elementary students? I teach 4th grade, always taught elementary, and a lot of my colleagues some are listening, listening to the show, how to apply this to younger students, or can we do it with younger students?
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, this is the way that they used to approach younger students until they started trying to prepare them for middle school. And then until middle school started trying to prepare them for high school. So, right. You know, it used to be satisfactory, unsatisfactory, like, you know, whatever it was.
Yeah.
and it wasn't grades. It was just, here are the things and how well you do them. Here are all the skills. Can you tie your shoes? How well do you tie your shoes? And, and then as you go up through like the grades, there's different skills, handwriting or whatever it was, and how well you did each of those skills. And then they wound up kind of veering away to get in line with middle school and high school. So when you look at elementary school, you're developing skills. That's what you're doing. Like, this fits perfectly. Now your language will be different because you're not going to be an expert in elementary school. So, how you're communicating this to your students, and you really want to put it in student friendly language, right? That's what changes. The idea is the same. We're developing skills, and here are the discrete steps that you need to go through in order to get to that skill, right? You have to be a beginner before you can be developing, right? You have to develop before you can be proficient. Each one of those comes before the other, and we actually time release those. So based on the practice that we give, we unlock it at different points in the year when the students are ready to go to that next level. And the students who are advanced, well, we coach them to the next level because we know what it is, but we don't reveal it so the rest of the class doesn't think they're behind, and we eliminate that competition and that race to a grade. So I think this mindset is perfect for elementary.
Okay, perfect. And it's interesting because we do use that type of language, beginner, developing, etc., when we're talking about language acquisition for students that are learning English as a second language, but then it doesn't translate to our grading system and how we're grading them throughout. So I thank you. That was a great answer. I was definitely looking forward to learning more about this through your blog, which I have read a few of the blog posts, and definitely the book coming out soon.
Oh, thank you.
When is the book coming out specifically?
The end of March. I don't have the exact release date. It's the end of March. I'll let you know when we get an exact release date, but it is available on Corwin's website and on Amazon for pre-order.
Nice. Yeah, I checked it out on Amazon pre-order, so we're definitely gonna have to get our hands on that. That's awesome. On your website, you actually outline some of the things that you should consider if you're trying to follow suit with this. And you say, first thing you have to do is, what do you value as an educator? Really think about that. Reflect on that. What do you value as an educator? What is the learning progression that you need your students to follow? And then language, which continues to be a very big thing. And then you go through a few points. Flexibility is a big thing that you have to have. And I think you've done a very good job of that over the years. Is there any one of those that really stands out to you as the most important?
Yeah. So the further I've gotten into this, I think the language is, hey, Frank's here. Good to see you, Frank. Thanks for signing on. So
how are you, bud?
Yeah, I really do think the language is the most important part, because from every aspect of it, students need concrete guidance on, these are the things that are expected of you. This is when they're expected of you. And then just the way we're talking about our students frames the way we think about them, which frames the way we interact with them. And it really does impact how they learn. So that has been the most difficult part, was getting that language that students could understand, that they could then use to self-assess and say, okay, here's my work. These are the things that I do well. Here are the things that I can do in addition to get to that next developmental level. So the framework and the idea, not that it was easy, but that fell into place a lot quicker than the language. We're still making adjustments to the language every year. We haven't used the same exact language from one year to the next. We're constantly making those adjustments. So I would say learning language, and just language in general, how you discuss students, how you talk to students, how you talk about students, how you communicate what they need to know. That language is the most important.
One of the things that has stood out for me as we've gone through this process, and especially this year, is how many teachers still have that very old school mindset and are very resistant to change. And it's been, while our administration has been very supportive, some of our colleagues, are still very much, in that, no, this is the content, this is the curriculum, this is what they have to know, and this is how I grade, and I've been doing it for however long, and this is how it's going to be. And Carmen says, too many. And, that's why we're here. That's what we're hoping to do here, is hopefully bring light onto that conversation that we can change and we have to change. What's up, Bill?
I have a question.
Go for it.
Would you guys get pushback from the teachers' unions, or do you get support from the teachers' unions?
Yes. So I haven't gotten anything but support from, now in the beginning, people told me I was nuts, but I'm all right with that.
I'm good with that too.
Yeah. So, and everybody's been very supportive. We're not forcing anybody to do anything. We're just, we're doing what we think is in the best interest of students. And, it's definitely made an impact in our students' lives, and for the better. It's made our classroom more enjoyable for us as well as them. They've learned a lot more. We're going deeper into topics, and so our pace, like everything about the course has improved since we've done this. And there's things that you can do in a traditional grading environment that would do some of this, but it wouldn't give you this complete experience. And so we offer advice, help, anybody who wants to do this, but nobody's being forced to do anything. So there's really no pushback from the union. And,
really the biggest amount of pushback was from parents in the beginning. And now kind of like the word has gotten out from year to year. Look, Dr. Frangiosa does things a little bit differently, but it's working. And I can say that firsthand, having been in the classroom. First off, it's a real honor to be able to work with Dave every single day, because he's that teacher that is trying to make a difference in what he does and lead by example. As we tell our students all the time, think about it, get better, reflect, figure out how you can grow. You have to keep trying. He's doing that in his profession. So I think it's definitely great to see that, and great to see to be able to work with someone that does that every single day. Our students, the level of work that they're doing year to year, this year being so difficult, it's so much more than they were doing in the past. And they're able to have conversations that they were not able to have, that we did not have with our students 6 years ago. And a lot of that is just that pressure is off. They're learning that they don't even know that they're learning. It's like they're just going through the process, and things are happening to stick somehow. It's beautiful to see sometimes.
Thanks for the kind words, Rob.
Of course.
I was wondering, are other teachers in your school, now that they've seen the success of your program, are they now taking that same approach, or at least starting to the process?
So the co-author of the book, we shared a classroom. And so I did this for half a year, and she saw the benefit to the students. So she said, yeah, this is something that I definitely want to do. Mm-hmm. And we have, about 20% of the school doing some form of alternate assessment, not necessarily doing what we're doing, but they're doing some form of alternate assessment. And I think we have some teachers that are looking to maybe kind of get closer to our approach. So
on that note, I've been approached by a different supervisor. So Dave and I work in the science department together, but I'm in a couple other departments as well. And those supervisors are now asking me, hey, can you take what Dave is doing and figure out how to apply that to what's going on in our classrooms? And the thing that we always come back to is that language. And it's going to take, I know you spent a lot of time that first summer trying to figure out the language and how to put everything together. So it's a lot to begin with, but once you start getting the ball rolling, it goes well.
Yeah, it was a lot of front-loaded effort, and like I think that might be one of the biggest deterrents to people is how much effort it takes up front, because we went through our entire curriculum and we wrote I can statements for our entire curriculum. These are the things that we need students to do, and then we color-coded them. And we said these are foundational concepts that they need to know before they can do other things. And then here are skill-based concepts that we can assess through, our different practices that will spiral throughout the year. So it was a lot to put together, but we've been doing this for 6 years. We can cut the learning curve down for people tremendously. So I think we're at a point where it is scalable.
So we're getting a little late into the evening here, so I wanted to touch on a couple subjects that we didn't touch on yet. You wrote a blog post about politics in the classroom, and I wanted to talk about that because you mentioned, and I'm going to try to make sure I get the quote correct. Let's see. You say, by extension, this means we should be evaluating our curricula and ensuring that we are teaching in a complete and accurate representation of each topic. When we decide to only teach a portion of the topic, it is either deemed too complex for our students to comprehend or controversial and not appropriate for the classroom. We have made a political decision by limiting student access to that complete and accurate information.
Yeah, I don't think we should censor information. I don't think we should pick and choose what we feel is appropriate for students or above their heads. I think we should give them the skills to be able to publicly debate in a productive manner, how to argue from evidence and accept other viewpoints and rebut them with evidence. So, we make every decision that we make in a classroom is political, right? So what we decide, like if we decide now, I'm not saying that we should be saying who to vote for. I'm not saying we should be talking that one party over the other. I'm saying we should be providing students with the ability to evaluate all the information, provide them with all the information, and give them the skills to evaluate all of the information and come to a decision on their own. Yeah.
Okay, so if you guys don't mind, I'd like to give you a quick little story because I wish that all of the teachers in this country followed what you just said and what I'm sure Michelle and Rob agree with. So on January 6th, which is an ugly day, it should never have happened. The very next day, one of my children comes out to me during their at-home learning, and she's on her Zoom class with her teacher, and she basically told me, Dad, Mr. Blank said this, and this about Republicans. And it was a complete bash fest of all Republicans. So I got hot. And if I was a Democrat or a liberal, I would feel the same way. So I asked my daughter, I said, let me stand in the background while he's spewing this, because it was clearly inappropriate. And my daughter, God bless her, grabbed my hand and she pulled me to a seat in her room and she says, Dad, I got this. So I let her have it. And she had the floor and she rose her hand and the teacher called on her and she says, Mr. So-and-so, with all due respect, I'm kind of bothered by what you're saying because I agree. What happened yesterday was very bad and the people should be held accountable for it. But we've talked about topics like this in the past, and you've never bashed a certain group of people the way you are now. Mm-hmm. And I think that if we're going to talk about topics and if you're going to talk about a group of people, I think we should be fair across the board. Because when we talked about what happened during the summer, you almost gave it a pass. But it's not fair to label a whole group of people like you just did and give another group of people a pass. We should condemn bad things across the board. And it almost broke my heart. I was so proud of her. And I thought for a brief moment in time, that teacher was like, he paused as if he was going to go back at her. And instead he paused and he said, that's a fair point. And then my daughter's phone blew up with, I can't believe you said that. Congratulations. Parents chiming in. Good for you. Good for you. And I applaud you guys because you can call that out. But the reality is again, from a layman, from a parent, the unfortunate part of this is that because we've become so polarized, and me and Rob and Michelle talk about it all the time, it bothers me that that particular teacher tried to influence my daughter. But I'm proud that my daughter at her age had the clarity enough to say, let's be fair. Let's debate everything fairly. Let's call everything out fairly. And I think as you guys move along in this process, I think one of the things you can do, and that's just my opinion, is remind teachers, if you want to talk about things like politics, if politics is going to inevitably come into the discussion during class, you guys have to be apolitical. If you're going to call out one, you got to call out the other because they're both at fault for a lot of different things. And I applaud you for acknowledging that because it's something that has to get addressed.
Well, I mean, first off, that's kind of a crazy story, and I applaud your daughter for speaking up and having the confidence and the composure to speak up.
She did good.
But I think as Dave was saying, like we're not saying that the ideal is not for us to actually get into any argument one way or the other, or even say, let me give you this viewpoint and then that viewpoint. Our goal should be to make sure we're teaching you how to get the facts.
Yeah, exactly. So our approach to January 6th was the result of people who could not critically think and decipher facts, right? So there's no such thing as a competing fact. All right. So a fact is something that is agreed upon by the majority of experts. So when you have now, there can be omitted facts. So maybe there's things that aren't part of the conversation that, and if that's the case, when you're bringing additional information, that's where the productive discussion comes from, right? But when you're saying, well, there's competing facts where one side is looking at the argument, well, nope, this is how we interpret it, this is the facts, and nope, this is how we interpret it, this is the facts. That's not a fact. All right. That's an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
all right. So our whole thing is, you need to be able to critically think, to sift through complete and accurate information and come to a decision. Now, if you don't have complete and accurate information, understand that the other side may have additional facts that you were unaware of. And, it's okay to change your viewpoint when additional facts come into play. So, and that's really our approach. And, that really is, it's not apolitical. It's just not party politics. Right. When you talk about politics is being able to advocate for yourself. It's being able to publicly debate what your best interest is. That's what politics is. Right. And so if you're making decisions that rob students of the knowledge or skill to do that, that's a political decision. And that was really our only point.
So when we're focused so much on content, grades, essentially we're taking some of that knowledge away from them because we're saying, learn this, know this, this is what you have to do, have to know. And we're not teaching them how to actually decipher that through that information, right? We're just saying, here's a bunch of stuff to remember, but we're not teaching you how to actually take all of this stuff in.
These are the things I deem as important.
Right. Yeah, that's what we're saying, right? This is what we feel is important. This is what you need to know. And in so many, and it's, this is what we get into sometimes, Bill, in so many of our lower income communities, which unfortunately are mostly minority communities, that's what's happening. They're being told, this is what you got to know. Don't worry about anything else. We're the teacher. We're the authority. Do what we say. Learn what we tell you to learn, or just remember what we tell you to remember.
Mm-hmm.
What ends up happening?
Yeah, that's going into a whole different rabbit hole. That's
well,
I want to get into that.
Our kids are getting older, and they may remember some stuff from elementary school, middle school, high school, even college. But then, as they're really becoming adults, they're not able to learn anything else. They're not able to learn more because they don't know how to learn. And really, that's what we're doing, is we're teaching how to learn.
Right. We should be teaching how to have those critical thinking skills.
Right.
Ability to question things, to research, to debate, to present evidence to support your opinion, versus just purely this is your list of content that you have to teach this year, and you better get through it quickly, which is what a lot of teachers are feeling as a pressure of, this is your list of what you need to teach them.
Yeah, I teach, Rob will tell you, I tell my students, question me too, right? Don't take my word for it, right? If you have something that you think I'm saying that's wrong, challenge me. And we had a student, you remember, wrote a 3-page paper on how my ideas are like communism, good in theory, but terrible in practice. Yeah. So, and like, I thanked the kid because he was the only student who actually did the assignment right. He was critical of me. He had his viewpoint. He felt comfortable enough that I was going to take his point of view, and we had a great discussion, and he wound up being one of our better students the second half of the year because we found that common ground of, all right, I get where you're coming from. Here's where I'm coming from. And so we opened up that dialogue just because he was allowed and felt comfortable voicing his opinion.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a lot of students like that over the years that don't want to buy in right away, but then over time, little by little, it's like, okay, I get it. And then all of a sudden they're great in the second half of the year. To quote Denzel Washington in Remember the Titans, it's like Novocaine. It always works, and just give it time. Right? So I'm going to finish up with one last thought on another blog post and the title of this blog post that you put out there was, I thought I was a good teacher.
Oh yeah. I love that one.
Thank you.
So you wrote that kind of in response to everything that's going on now with the struggles of remote learning during this epidemic that we're in.
Yeah.
What was the main factor for you really getting to that?
So really, I know there's a lot of teachers out there that are feeling like they're not doing a good job right now. And even there's teachers in our building that have said to me, well, you have it all together. You know what you're doing. I wanted them to know that they're not alone. Right. Even the teachers who look like they have it all together, and you see me every day, you know that I'm struggling just like everybody else. And I wanted people to know that the students aren't getting the best of me in my course. And there's really nothing I can do about it because our conditions right now don't allow it. Mm-hmm. So I'm doing the best I can do, but it's not the best version of me. And that's really what I was thinking when I wrote that post.
Yeah. And you know what? To all teachers out there, and really everyone, it's okay to not be so hard on yourself sometimes. Even Dave took a day off last week,
yeah.
Like self-care, and it was a well-deserved day off. But
those are few and far between.
Yeah, I don't think I ever remember you taking a day off just for, because you needed it. Yeah. But yeah, there are so many teachers out there that are struggling and feeling beat down. Michelle and I have these conversations all the time that it's, what are we going to do? It's 10 o'clock at night and and we're still figuring out what we're going to be doing for the next day. And it's a lot. It's too much. So it means a lot to say you're not alone. We are out there, and this channel, this page is going to be a place where teachers are going to be coming together, I hope, and not just teachers, coaches, leaders of industry, come together. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out solutions, because the leadership matters. Simple as that.
And it can start with all of us. All of us, and wherever we are, at home, in our industries, at our schools, like we can start there to make a shift in the mindset.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. So one of the things we do here is we pick one of the core values of leadership and which one resonates with you today, and any final last points that you might want to speak about before we close out. So I'll go ahead and pick the first one just to give you guys a thought on it, give you some time to think about it. And I'm going to spend
no prep time whatsoever.
Oh, come on, man. I mean, the core values, right? These are the core values of the Army: loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. And I like it because it's leadership. For us, leadership, it's leading by example. And we talk about these core values. And I'm going to say, for me, the big one is duty. As always, and I love making the joke, and it's my duty, and it's a big duty. But you know what? It's I feel that responsibility to be, I guess, the conduit of a few different worlds, right? I have a background in religion and dealing with spiritual aspects of people. I have a background in the military. I have a background in education. Father. I feel it's my responsibility, just of who I am and some of the struggles that my family is going through, to speak up and be one of the people that can try to help others. So I don't have a lot to offer as far as what I can tell people to teach and how to teach, but I can be someone to at least say, hey, I'm here to listen and listen to what you have to say, and you can help us out. All right. And we missed some comments, and I am sorry about that. I'm going to throw them up on the screen. All right. Diversity of opinion is healthy and critical in a democracy. Diversity of facts is detrimental and unhealthy to a cohesion of a lawful society. Absolutely. Thank you, Carmen. I appreciate it.
Amen.
I appreciate you being here with us.
Thank you, Carmen.
Students need to feel comfortable in expressing themselves. Otherwise, they just conform. Right? Yeah. I agree. Very much.
Or say nothing at all. They just shut down.
Yeah.
We are worse.
Absolutely. And I think Kathy's laughing at my joke. All right. Whoever wants to take the floor. Go ahead, buddy.
You know what? It's always an honor talking to Michelle and Rob and Kathy when she's on. And Dave, it was very, very interesting, the sales pitch you made, because, for a layman like me, it was a sales pitch. And I think you guys, you did a very good job. So I'm going to pick selfless service, because I don't think you guys are in the positions that you're in as teachers if you didn't have selfless service or a desire to teach. Because I've said this before, as a police officer, if I had to shoot someone, I could shoot someone. If I had to see a deceased body, or if I had to hold a dead baby in my arms, or if I had to tell someone that their loved one died, I could do it, or maybe it was a morbid thing. I don't know, but I was able to do it. But I couldn't be a teacher. And I can relate, because I'm Mr. Mom right now who's teaching my kids 3 days a week. So I can relate, and it must take a lot of selfless service on your parts, and I applaud you for it. And I wish all the teachers were like you three, but you guys know that they're not, and I know that they're not. But, again, kudos to you guys, and I'm sure there are more of you than there are of the bad apples.
Well, we're going to find them.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
And back to you, Bud. Thank you for your selfless service as well.
Thanks, brother.
Michelle?
So I was going to say duty, and then I was going to say service. So I guess I will go with, I guess I want to touch on the selfless service, actually. I'll follow with a Bill. But I want to question the selfless part. I do want to question that because this year I keep hearing so many teachers so overwhelmed. And the idea is to be selfless, to give of everything you have. And saying, no, we are in service, but it shouldn't be completely selfless. We shouldn't give every little bit that we have. We have to care for ourselves so that we can continue to do our best and continue to learn and get better, because we're always striving to be better teachers. We have something to give our students. If we're completely on empty and we've given everything we've got, then we have nothing else to give our students. So I question the selfless part, but definitely agree with service, continuing to try to serve our community, serve our families, serve our students, and continue to strive to be better.
Absolutely. And I'll just piggyback on that and to point out, so I'm always reading my books, my book that I'm reading on Buddhism, but the correlation with interdependence, and for me, selfless service is about, if you are able to take care of yourself well, you're better able to take care of everyone else, and therefore that adds to the selfless service. Right. Mm-hmm. All right, Dave, you're the man.
Integrity. So everything that I do, whether it's in front of the class, in front of other teachers, or behind the scenes, I have my purpose in mind, which is, how can I make students' experience the best that it can be? So, integrity, it's doing the right thing when nobody's looking. And we talk about this with our students all the time, and that's something that I try to live by.
Absolutely. Very nice. All right. Thank you guys very much. Really appreciate it, Dave.
Thanks for having me on.
Awesome, man. This was great. Really appreciate it. Hopefully we can do it again sometime when the book drops. I know this is just the beginning for you. I know you're going big places, man. So it's
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm excited for you. Michelle, Bill, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, guys. Dave, good luck. I'll be buying.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. Take care, everyone. And one last comment. Thank you, Carmen, and thank you for everyone else who was listening and who checked in with us. We will be doing this again on Sunday at 8 p.m. Not quite sure who will be on with us, but if you want to join, shoot us an email, and we'll see if we can get you on here. Be well, everyone. Have a good night. Rest up.
Take care, guys. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave.